Have you ever walked past a dumpster and been like, yo, I wonder what's in that dumpster?
I can put on these glasses. Let's start eating that trashy.
Yeah, there's a baby in her garbage can. In her case and stuff, said that she is an obituary liar.
If she did something wrong, Mom would hit her with the itchy stick.
Goodnight, Sugar Babe.
You're listening to the True Crime Dumpster podcast with hosts Amy and
Kevin.
And we are coming back at you this week with episode 60, The Murder of Vera Jo Reigle.
Episode 60. And what a story this one is.
Yeah, so we thought that we would go light. You're
Think
right.
again.
We thought we would go a little bit lighter this week because, I probably spent upwards of 12 to 15 hours. I read the book twice. I read her last case, which was Natasha Kampusch. I read her memoir twice and I loved it and I don't regret doing it. But I was like, let's go with something a little easier this week.
A little more mellow.
Not necessarily mellow, but maybe something that we can just
so
watch
intense.
and take notes on.
Yeah, not so intense on the research.
Yeah. So that didn't happen. Well, we didn't have to read a book, but on all these true crime message boards, there's a movie that keeps getting repeated over and over and over again. And it's just people being like, what the fuck did I just watch? They're like, Goodnight Sugar Babe. What the fuck did I just watch? People don't have anything else to say about it at all. It's just like, what the fuck?
What else can you say about it?
The only other thing that people have said is everyone in that documentary needs to be in jail. And I'm like, wow, this seems like there's only one review for this documentary. So I was like, well, I should probably watch it then. So... And
yeah.
I didn't know anything about it other than obviously a murder took place. And so I just turned it on.
Wow.
And it was like getting hit by a 10-pound...
A train?
I know. I was going to say that, but I don't want to say that. It was like getting hit in the face with a big fist. I was not ready for it.
Or maybe kissing someone with those teeth.
Yeah. So one thing, at the top here, I do want to say that there should be a disclaimer on this episode.
This one, we are going to need a disclaimer.
Yeah. There is incest. There's rape. All kinds of rape. Baby rape.
There's, yeah.
Well, baby sodomy. I don't even know.
It doesn't matter.
Small town stuff.
There's lots of violence.
Yeah, there's
lots
some
of abuse.
Prison penises.
There's dog poop eating.
It's like the worst John Waters movie times 100.
There's a pig in a cupboard.
It really does. It seems like it's the family from, was it Pink Flamingos?
It's the U.S. Goalers.
Yeah, it's the U.S. Goalers for sure. But also it does harken back to Pink Flamingos a bit. Just a little bit. Pink Flamingos is a PG film compared to this family or this cult, whatever you want to call it. But we did get some good news today, which maybe we'll save for the end.
There's some breaking news, but we'll save that for the end.
Oh, and actually just one update or two updates for the people who listened to our Yasser Saeed case.
Yeah.
His court case has gone forward along with his son and brother who helped hide him for the past 12 years. And so his son pled guilty, I believe, and got 20 years or something. And then the brother pled not guilty and was just sentenced to 13 years. And so the next up on the docket is Yasser Saeed. And for those of you who have not listened to that episode, we did get a chance to interview people from the documentary as well as the documentarian. Super amazing woman, Ruth Trotter. She's been also keeping us abreast of the situation on Twitter. And so that's where we're getting our news updates from. So we just want to, again, thank Ruth and Shoel for, just keeping us aware of what's going on in the Yasser Saeed case. Going forward, if the son got that much time and the brother got that much time, I'm guessing Yasser is.
Someone should
He's gonna either get
take him
death
for
or
a
life in
ride and
prison.
just turn around and shoot him like he did to his daughters.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's one update of another fucked up family. And actually, Tissy does not remind me of Cheri in this story.
They get their hair done at the same place, I think.
Probably. I didn't even know she had hair because of all the other stuff going on with her.
So this documentary, it really just comes out swinging, and all these
It's confusing.
fucking throwbacks in it look like they are like the people that were too fucked looking to make it on The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, another disclaimer here. I'm going to probably talk a lot of shit, so...
Yeah, and
so there's that.
For the most part, we try to only talk shit about the bad people, but I mean...
No one's really good here.
It's like there's not a single dentist that lives in Ohio in this thing. Like, there are some people with decent teeth, but weirdly enough, they're products of incest.
Yeah.
So
buckle up, because this is one hell of a story.
Yeah. So we're going to try to make this as linear as possible, which is not something that the documentary seeks to do. The documentary just like literally is like...
It's like that movie Irreversible where it starts from the fucking back and you can't remember 5 seconds in front.
And it's traumatizing. Yeah, for sure. So Goodnight Sugar Babe. You're like, why is it called that? So there's a character. Her name is Cheri Brooks. And her nickname is Sugar Babe. She is the furthest thing from sugar or a babe.
Yeah.
So just honestly, listen to this podcast first and then go watch the documentary. It'll be a lot easier. We watched it twice now, and I will post my family tree diagram.
We had to, so there's a lot of people involved in this story, and we
whittled it down
to make a diagram to keep all these fucking weirdos
and basically we've cut out all aunts, uncles, and almost all cousins because there's a lot. And it's not that they don't matter in the documentary, but in audio form where you guys don't have a visual to help you along, it would just be too much. Okay.
Here we go.
So Cheri Brooks, aka Sugar Babe, she had a shitty childhood. Okay. So again, kind of similar to Tissy, kind of similar to like other characters. We're going to feel a tiny bit of sympathy for her at the beginning, but don't worry. She's going to be a fucking monster later on.
That sympathy does not last long.
This one does not last long at all. No. But again, I don't want that to lessen the amount of victimhood she went through very early on. You have the power to change. You have the power to turn the other cheek. You don't have to become the abuser if you've been abused. So that's just a reminder.
That's true.
So,
but some people are also thrown into just a world of shit, and there's no escape.
And she absolutely was thrown into a world of shit. So she had a super shitty childhood. Her mother's name is Charlotte Ethel. I'm only going to introduce her now. She comes into it minorly throughout. She's actually kind of a sweet old looking lady, but
don't let that fool you.
Yeah, I think that she definitely let things obviously go on and never checked her daughter and never checked her family that was obviously abusing one another. She has an unnamed molester father, and he would molest her, and I'm assuming all of the kids. And he started calling her Sugar Babe, which she kind of wears the molestation and the outcome and all of the stuff surrounding the molestation almost as a badge of honor. And again, she's a fucking monster. So I would never say this about an abuse victim, but like Cheri is okay with keeping it in the family to some extent. And although
to a large extent,
I know that obviously as like a 5 or 6 year old girl, the last thing on earth you want to do or have done to you is be molested by your father. And I feel bad for 5-year-old Cheri, but you don't feel bad for teenager Cheri or adult Cheri at all. So as a result of the molestations, all the kids were taken away from Ethel and molester dad. I'm assuming that Cheri was the oldest. They don't really talk about her childhood too much, but and we use some sources outside of the documentary, but for the most part, the documentary is our primary source because this story was not heavily written about online outside of like true crime blogs. Yeah. There's not even a lot of like local newspaper clippings because all of this takes place in Findlay, Ohio, which is a fairly small town.
A fairly small fucked town.
Yeah. Although my dad says it's larger, I don't know. So the sad thing about everyone being in foster care is that everyone is adopted away except for Cheri, which again sucks to be her, right? I don't think she was an easy foster kid, and I don't think she necessarily wanted to be placed. Again, not victim blaming, I'm just stating the facts here. She ages out of the foster system, which, as many people know, is very, 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 very difficult because if you have a family and you turn 18, you have a family to go back to, right?
Yeah.
If you age out of the foster system, you have a bunch of people who like looked after you for a month or two here, a year or two here, and you don't own anything. You don't have a room. You don't have a family to fall back on. So I do feel bad for 18-year-old Cheri. And again, I think that some of her shit happens out of necessity. So I believe she just moves back in with her molester father. Yep. When she turns 18.
No other options.
And again, that sucks. I'm sure if she had been adopted away, maybe some of this stuff could have been prevented.
So she comes back home to her dad's place and the abuse just picks up where it left off.
Yeah, basically. And then the dad would come into Cheri's room when she was sleeping with her boyfriend, and he would kick the boyfriend out of the bed to sleep with Cheri. And by some accounts, and again, we can't know this for sure or anything, was that she was in a somewhat consensual sexual relationship with her father.
Okay.
Which again, I would never allege against anyone, but this isn't just anyone. This is Cheri Brooks, aka Sugar Babe.
Okay.
All right. So her first serious relationship after all of that was with her cousin, but not just any cousin, her first cousin.
Oh.
Which is her mother's sister's son.
That's pretty close.
I know.
Right?
She's like, well, it was her mother's sister's son. It's like, yeah, that's her fucking cousin. Like, so his name is Daniel Bixler. We're going to call him Senior because there's going to be another Danny Bixler in a little bit. We're only going to mention him basically this one time.
But yep, they were kissing cousins.
More like fucking cousins. But anyways, in 1981, Scotty, who's potentially the most normal, sweet guy in the entire thing, he's born as a product of their incest, though. And he's hyper aware of it. That's what sucks, too.
Yep, this is a good one.
Yeah. He was like, I'm what you call a product of what is it? Incest? It sucks. It sucks how aware, but he's a good guy in it. Like he's the one
for
of the,
everyone involved. He is like the best one.
Yeah, he's very honest, and he definitely doesn't try to like make anybody. It's just he tells the facts. Everybody else, they shade, I think, what they're meaning to say. He has no filters, and I really appreciate that about him. So we don't really care about Daniel Bixler too much because he does end up being in another relationship where he killed his partner and then went on a high-speed chase with police officers in an 18-wheeler and then crashed, and he's in prison for life now. Their relationship they never get married, or I don't think it's legal. Maybe it's I don't know.
Yeah, this ain't Utah.
Okay. But it's close to Kentucky. I don't know. So they don't end up in a long-term relationship. They just have one kid. Her next relationship that she's with is with a guy, I believe, named Mike. And I couldn't get... Basically, I think she has 3 significant partners in her life other than her dad. And the second one is, I think, a dude named Mike. And like, for the most part, he's negligible. But she has her next 3 kids with him, I believe. So that's just a note. And then she meets a guy named Kevin Senior. I'm going to call him Senior because there's going to be a junior.
We'll post our little family tree here on...
Yeah, so if you need to follow along.
Yeah, You might need to.
So he's Kevin Brooks. So that's where they get the Brooks name from. And they have basically between Mike and Kevin, they have the rest of her 8 kids. Yes, she has 8. And just as a quick little, I'll look at my graph right here.
Yeah.
So there's Scotty, who I believe is number 1. Joshua, which is number 2. He doesn't come into it. Michael, which is 1985. He's number 3. He's in the documentary a lot, but he's not super important to the story. He's married to somebody, though, who's pretty important to the story, and we'll bring her up. Her name's Shannon. Then there's little Maria in 1986, and she's taken away. Then there's little Cheri in 1987, who's also taken away. Basically, she's never able to keep the little girls because she molests them. And little Cheri is the smallest mention ever, but for Maria gets brought up a lot as just kind of like the baby that got away. And as a result, or maybe even a precursor, Cheri is obsessed with baby girls. Obsessed. And we'll get into it more later. So those are the only 2 kids she couldn't keep, basically, because she couldn't stop molesting them. Then there was Kevin Jr., which is AKA Punky, and we will refer to him as Punky throughout. Then there's Zachary, Garth, and Chucky. So those are all of her kids. She has 7 boys and 2 girls, and the 2 girls do not come into it other than they're taken away by Child Protective Services. And Zachary is one that we'll probably be focusing on the most because he is the one who dates Vera, and Vera will come into it very soon. Okay, you on board, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. So one other thing I want to note is that the entire family, maybe except for Kevin Sr., I'm not sure, they're a bunch of Crips. Is that right?
That's what they're LARPing as, yes.
That's what they're LARPing as. So yeah, they're really into, like, literally almost every picture you see of them, like a still picture, they're like throwing up some Crips gang signs and wearing like blue bandanas and stuff. And we even see Cheri do it at certain parts.
So at this point, when the sons are, this age and stuff, Cheri is bound to a wheelchair because she...
Type 2 diabetes, morbidly obese.
She is like an uglier version of Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars.
Yeah, she's like...
Amy hasn't seen that, so she doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Well, no, I've seen it. I get the reference. How about that?
She probably eats frogs like that, too.
Yeah.
But her feet are fucked.
They're bandaged, and like pus is like clearly coming to the surface on both of her feet. And they zoom in on her feet more than once.
It's
so
like...
that you can get a visual.
It's like fucking Dead Alive feet.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Also, their family is known as frequent flyers to both 911 and the local police. And one of the most normal looking people in the documentary is the 911. You're like, wait, how are you? Oh, you're not part of the family. She knows the family so well from phone calls that they actually interview the 911 operator.
Yeah, she just knows their voices.
Yes, like very well. And she calls them frequent flyers.
So these guys run around the neighborhood pretending to be Crips, calling themselves the Brooks clan. And there's a rival gang down the street that they fight at the park or whatever the fuck they do. But yeah, total oogles.
So now we're going to focus on our victim. Sorry for starting with the villain, but we're going to focus on our victim, Vera Jo Reigle. We know that she starts dating one of Cheri's kids when she's a teenager, but her origin story with the Brooks clan starts much earlier. And this is also an indication of where we get Cheri being obsessed with little baby girls. So when Cheri gets Maria taken away in 1986 or 1987, because she has her for a whole year before she's taken away, Should
we get into that story right now?
What?
The baby Maria story?
Oh gosh, should we? You go ahead.
Okay, so
it's short. It's sad.
That's fucked.
Cheri and or a friend are changing little Maria's diapers, and blood is seen in the diapers, and the friend says, you have to report this. Cheri gets really like defensive and says, oh, it's the guy that's living here. It's a guy that's living here. It's not me.
So another thing we should bring up about this house that they live at is like this fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
And there's like upwards of like 15 to 20 people living there at any given time.
Right. And it's like falling apart. and disgusting and filled with trash, human and
physical garbage. Yeah.
So at any time, there's just randos living there, and Cheri likes them because like she's a really controlling person, and she's basically like trying to get everyone to shit out girls, so
that she can take them,
do bad things to them.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's a friend who's like watching Cheri change the diapers, sees the blood in the diapers, and is like, "You got to report this." And so her and the friend take her to the hospital, and then basically they file a report, and then Cheri takes her baby away from the hospital and then drops her off at her mother's house, Charlotte's house, and says, "Here, she's going to spend the night with you." And the mother's like, "This is weird because you're like obsessed with your baby. Why are you letting her be in my possession?" You know,
Not sketchy at all.
Not sketchy at all. And then the next morning, the police come to Charlotte's house being like, "Hey, give us baby Maria. You were reported as having her kidnapped." And it was Cheri, whether we like her or not, is a little bit of a manipulative mastermind. She gets herself out of things. So to kind of cast some kind of like either doubt or time or space from Maria, that's why she drops her off at the mother's house, you know, because, and then basically Maria's gone out of the picture for the rest of the time, and hopefully she got adopted away to a good family and never had to know that Cheri was her mother.
Yes.
Yes. And that's what we hope for little Cheri too. We know nothing about. So when Cheri had Maria and had her taken away, she was living in the same apartment complex as a woman named Verna and a dude named Willard, who had a little baby girl named Vera Jo, who was about the same age as Maria. Once Cheri had Maria taken away, she starts kind of coveting and like being like obsessed with baby Vera. And I think she just asks for the kid, right? She's like, "Can I have her?"
I'm not sure how that went down.
But Verna was like, "Stay the fuck away from us." Verna is like a gray character because yes, she's Vera's mother, but they do become estranged at some point because Vera's father was molesting her, and potentially the mother allowed it to happen and didn't report him or anything.
I don't know what's going on in this fucking town.
Yeah, there's a lot of molestation.
God damn.
Yeah. So like I said, Vera was molested by her father, and then she becomes estranged from her mother, and then she actually grows up with an aunt. She's got severe ADHD, and everyone throughout the entire documentary, including a former teacher, said that she had the mental capacity of an 8-year-old. But it doesn't seem like she's really diagnosed with a learning disability, but it's almost more like they're saying that her emotional age is 8 years old. I'm sure she had some disability getting through with school, but she did graduate high school. And basically they said that she never got to the point in her maturation where she wasn't eager to please, like to the point where it was unhealthy. So at 19, Vera started dating a 13-year-old Zachary, which is one of Cheri's kids. Now, I know it might sound like she is the predator in the situation, but you have to understand that Cheri made her kids, her boys, go out and find girlfriends. And remember, her emotional age is 8 years old. She seems like a very, very, very innocent character in this. So even though, yes, she's 19 and he's 13, it seems like potentially the relationship was more predatory on Zach's end. And he was really trying to appease his mother, Cheri.
Right, because she's mentally 8 years old.
Yes, but she's still technically 19, and that is statutory rape. So we're acknowledging that it's illegal, but we do like Cheri very much condoned it.
Goes.
Yeah, and Cheri wanted it. After, I think, a couple years potentially of dating, Vera moved into Cheri's house at 300 Center Street in Findlay, Ohio, and essentially became their slave. You want to talk about the feet?
I'm not sure how long it took for her to just be a full-on slave to Cheri, but so her number one job was rubbing Cheri's disgusting...
They called it doing her feet.
Doing her feet.
I think that she had to rub them and maybe even bandage.
Them.
Yeah, like ointment them and bandage them. They're disgusting.
Nothing in this story is pretty.
So they also believe, and I think it's been corroborated, that when Vera moved in, Cheri was very aware of the fact that she had a disability check. And in fact, I believe all of her kids were on disability, including her. So none of these people had jobs. They were all collecting, Social Security money, disability money and stuff. And she was able, as like Vera's place where she lived, like as her landlord, she was able to have the disability checks basically written directly to her. And
She had a racket going.
And she wanted all of her boys' girlfriends to live with them. I'm assuming Shannon was on a disability check. She doesn't look very able.
Yeah. She looks like
she could put away a Slurpee or 5, but I don't think she could.
She's probably like a holy terror at Popeyes.
So, and again, I'm only saying this because, 1, it's funny. And then 2, Shannon's not a good person.
Nope.
Cheri's not a good person. Okay.
And
I don't feel bad making fun of them. Yes. Do you want to talk about something?
No, I don't. I don't want to talk about these guys anymore.
Okay. Also, another tenant of the house was non-human. And that was a
pig.
Yes. Who could poop wherever it wanted. It lived in a cupboard.
I think they call it pigging around.
Yeah. And they actually forced Vera to like sleep in the cupboard with the pig some nights.
Yeah.
They thought it was hilarious.
So apparently at some point, I don't know who.
It's like Humane Society or something.
The Humane Society gets called to the house. I don't know how. But come and take this pig out of this house because it's too fucked for a pig to live in.
Yeah, but it's fine for the human children that live there.
All these human gremlins just shitting out babies.
Yeah, but the pig was there for years. It's just something that you have to point out. At a certain point, I think when she's like 23 years old, Vera gets pregnant. And Cheri becomes super duper excited because that's her whole fucking thing in life is her boys, girls getting pregnant and crossing her fingers that it's a girl. And she would tell the girls, if you have a boy, you can keep him. If you have a girl, they're mine. That is just fucking weird.
Yeah.
So she was so excited about the birth of the baby girl, which her name is Willadine. She wanted that baby girl out, right? She wanted it as a birthday present to herself. Her birthday is on November 3rd. The baby's not due till like December 9th. So what does she do on like the 2nd? She makes Vera drink 3 bottles of castor oil that she mixes with some orange juice. Now, castor oil is like an old wives' myth where like 2 tablespoons can help induce labor. Basically, it's an extreme diuretic and laxative, and it probably does kind of push those muscles to start contracting, I guess, because your body's uncontrollably pooping, right? So she gives her 3 bottles of castor oil, and it causes her a lot of pain and agony, and she goes to the hospital, and labor is induced basically at this point. She's in labor for, I believe, like 2 days, and the baby is born on November 4th, 1 day after Cheri's birthday.
Right.
And she's a month early, and there are complications. She has to stay in the hospital for a while. But Cheri says, well, she wanted to come out so bad for my birthday and share some turkey and green beans and yams with her mama for Thanksgiving.
Blah.
I know, it's disgusting. Luckily, baby Willadine is really fucking cute. She's got these sparkling blue eyes, blonde hair. She's very cute.
Yeah.
Luckily, she's healthy. She ends up being healthy. However, Vera's never allowed to touch her or be near her, or Cheri orders Zachary to hit her. And Zachary like probably does shit on his own anyways. Like, I don't think he always needs Cheri telling him what to do, but it's not like he loves this girl. It's not like he loves his baby. He's just fucking he's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So Willa Dean, the little baby girl, she sleeps in Cheri's bed for the first 6 months, which is terrifying to think about because, again, the last 2 baby girls were taken away from her within a year. So you just kind of wonder what the fuck is happening with the baby in the bed with her. And then also just like kind of a side note, Vera's not allowed to have a cell phone at all. And she has pretty much forced by Cheri and the family to cut off all contact with her family. When her family sees her out and about at all, she hides her head, says she can't talk, and runs away. Like literally runs away from her family. And this is family who loves her. Like aunts and uncles and stuff. There's a lot of police involvement in Vera that's starting around September of 2010. So Vera's sister, who was super duper close with Vera before she left, she calls the police to tell them that Vera was being held against her will and that she wanted the police to do a wellness check. Well, when the police do the wellness check, they ask her, she's 24 at this point, and they're not considering her emotional or mental age because I don't believe that there's like an actual diagnosis or anything going on. And they ask her, you know, are you okay? And she says yes. And of course, every single time the police come and talk to her, every single time like DHS or CPS or whatever comes and talks to her, Cheri's always present. And, you know, being in the same room as your tormentor, as your abuser, you're not going to answer the same as if you were on your own.
And police never separate them.
And which is fucking insane. So then right around this time when, you know, after Willa Dean is born and all of that stuff, Punky, who is also Kevin Jr., right? He dies. So
he's the one that gets hit by the car.
Yeah. So on August 5th, 2010, him and his girlfriend Heather are walking along a dark highway to go buy some heroin, and he gets struck and killed by a cab. Now, Cheri spins the story to say Heather must have pushed him. She needs someone to blame. She cannot accept that this is an accident. So she gets other girls, I believe, like cousins of the family, to like beat up Heather. Because again, she's just like a weird ringleader. She keeps comparing herself to Charles Manson as well. Like, I can make people do stuff for me. This is my family, right? And so I think, again, I don't even think she thinks that Heather had anything to do with it. I just think she wants to see what kind of control and power she can exert on people. So basically, that's the story she spins for a little while, is that my Punky could have never died in an accident. It had to have been by malicious intent by Heather. So she vilifies Heather big time. The end. In January of 2011, there's another incident at the house where the police are called, and they come, and Vera's nose is broken, and she's got a big bump on her head. Most likely she's concussed. And Cheri spins this tale about a black boyfriend coming and beating her up. So on top of all of everything, Cheri's also a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
So she pins it on a Demetrius Thompson or like Darius. It's just like, what typical black name can I think of, right? And you can see her concocting this story like on the documentary. She's just like, oh, what's a black name that I can blame it on?
She's not the best liar.
And so she was like, oh yeah, her black boyfriend came by and beat her up. The end. No, it was fucking Zachary, duh. So the police interview her. She goes along with whatever Cheri says to say, and then they let her go. And she's still concussed at this point. I don't even think she was fully treated at the hospital. And at this point, she's so introverted and hurt by the family, but can't leave, that she just stays in her room 100% of the time. And she will only come out when Cheri tells her to. So in March of 2011, they get 2 new people that add into the house. And their names are Danny Bixler Jr., who's 21 years old, and his piece of shit girlfriend, Nicole Peters, who's 17 years old. They are the hillbilly version of Bonnie and Clyde, or they'd like to think that they are.
It's not even hillbilly. It's like...
Yeah,
pseudo
that's like
gangster.
I know that's like being mean to hillbillies. I take that back. It's bad. Like, I don't know. So basically, she like started writing to this guy in prison, and then they get together, and he gets out. He had just gotten out of prison, and they start doing it right away. You get to see a pretty cool or 2 pretty cool penis pics. So on Danny Bixler Jr., remember that's the fucking cousin, the kissing cousin's other son from another relationship, probably the one where he killed his dad or mom. There's so many people. So anyways, he's got your name, Yourname, tattooed on his dick, which you get to see in the documentary on a cell phone camera. It's pretty cool.
It's a highlight for sure.
Yeah, I rewound it because I was like, is that a tattoo? And you're like, I don't want to see this anymore. So he gets out of prison, and him and his girlfriend, you know, the budding, lovely relationship between them, they go to the park, to the swings.
So there's some kids sitting on the swings, and they walk up, and he wants to swing for his girlfriend. So they walk up, and she flicks a cigarette at this little kid that's like on these swings, and then what's it, Danny?
Yeah.
Beats this kid up
to like a bloody pulp. He sends him to the hospital.
He needs to be hospitalized. Yeah.
And then they go on the run.
So yeah, now they've got assault shit.
And this happened in Tiffin, Ohio.
Yeah, like 20 miles away.
So then they run to Cheri's house because they're like, who's the trashiest person we know that would take us, knowing that we're fugitives? Oh, Cheri. So he runs to Cheri's house. Now remember, Cheri is his aunt, right? But her son, Scotty, is both his half-brother and cousin at the same time.
Where's Jerry Springer?
Think about that one.
Fuck yeah.
So Danny Bixler Jr., let's talk about his physical appearance real quick. He has got the worst looking teardrop. I didn't even know it was a teardrop.
So he just got out of prison.
Yeah.
And he's got this filled in teardrop on the inside corner of his like left eye.
Yeah, and he's trying to claim that it's because he killed someone in prison. But if we know anything about and by know anything about me, I mean I know nothing. But I could have sworn that when you quote unquote kill someone and you're in prison, you get a teardrop, but it's on the outer part of your eye and it tends to be hollow.
I don't know the exact rules, but I've never seen a teardrop on the inside.
And I've never seen it really filled in like that either. So there's another podcast we did listen to get a bit of information from, and I love them and I always rep them red-handed. They're awesome. They were maybe saying that it was potentially a sign of potentially being like someone's bitch in jail.
Yeah, like
getting raped.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't know for sure. I looked up. So if you know, like, let us know. Maybe you've been to prison and you're listening to our podcast, or you're with someone who has that, you know, try to figure it out for us. But it was not easy to find online. I don't think he killed anyone at that point. He seems, I don't know, he's just like a fake gangster. So everyone at Cheri's house is really happy to see Danny Bixler, and they immediately accept him with open arms, and his girlfriend Nicole. And they think it's really cool that he killed someone maybe, and he's got a lot of Crip cred. Like they kind of wanted him to be the new Punky, like in their lives. And like Punky was supposed to be quote unquote set to be the leader of the Crips in the neighborhood. Okay. So Cheri tried to blame Punky's death on Heather, the girlfriend, with him. But now she really wants little baby Willadine, and she wants Vera out of the picture, right? Because at this point, Zachary's really getting tired of her. He wants to go be with other people. He's really only like Vera's only there because of Cheri. She's not there of her own accord, really. And she still thinks that she's in a relationship with Zachary. But Zach kind of wants to just get rid of her. But Cheri knows that if Vera leaves, she is allowed to take the daughter with her, and she has every right to. So I believe at this point, is trying to concoct something to get Vera out of the picture, or at least get custody of Willadine somehow.
Right.
So she spins this story to Danny like, oh, hey, Danny Bixler Jr., I fucked your dad and you're my... Anyways, she's like, you know who really pushed Punky in front of the cab? It was fucking Vera. And like at this point, he's like, dude, that's my Crip brother. That's my cousin. That's my brother. Whatever, you know? And then, so he's like irate about it. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. And then on top of that, there's this shrine of Punky, I believe in Cheri's room.
It's just like on a shelf.
It's on it. Yeah, it's on a shelf in Cheri's room. It's like a picture of
His
him.
ashes.
It's his ashes. And as you do with the dead, you have an offering, and it seems fitting for the family that the offering that they have for him is a Kit Kat bar.
Yep.
I don't believe that this is true, but allegedly Vera ate the Kit Kat bar, which is super disrespectful to Punky. So there's that. So she's got 2 strikes against her at this point. Danny fucking hates her because he's like, you're disrespecting my brother. You killed him, all this stuff. So she's already becoming this huge villain, false villain, being concocted by Cheri in Danny's eyes, right? So Danny gets a padlock and he attaches it to a belt, and he uses this in the weeks, days before her murder to beat her with. He beats her with a padlock on a belt.
That is fucking brutal.
Yeah. She has welts all over her body. And then on top of that, his girlfriend Nicole finds a paddle, and allegedly, everyone says, mostly Shannon and Cheri, that Nicole beats Vera, which I believe because she's a piece of shit too. And it gets them off, this couple, right? Danny and Nicole. It gets them off so hard that like after they beat the shit out of Vera, they go and fuck.
Yeah.
And all the beatings happen in Cheri's room. And so basically after Vera's beaten, it's basically assumed in the documentary that everyone fucks after they beat Vera, which is fucking disgusting.
This is the worst.
Like Cheri probably
ever.
fucking molests the baby, and you know, like, because it gets her off. It's so gross. I hate the words coming out of my mouth. Okay. At this point, Cheri needs more reasons for people to get pissed off at Vera. So she concocts a story about a rabbit cage and a brick. So apparently when Vera is cleaning the rabbit cage, she allegedly drops a brick on Cheri's disgusting diabetic foot. And apparently that may have been an accident, but basically it turns into she threw a rock at my foot. Then it turned into she threw bricks at my feet. And then she's just like, that fucking bitch and all this stuff. So now, you know, she's the killer of Punky. She disrespected Punky's ashes, and now she's throwing bricks at Cheri's feet. So again, the fake reasons to hate Vera just keep piling, right?
Yeah, she's fucked.
Yeah, she's fucked at this point. And it's so bad. The beatings have gotten so bad, and they hate Vera so much.
She can't even do the feet.
Yeah, she can't. Yeah, there are nights where she can't do the feet, and then Scotty's forced to do it, and he's like, So Kevin Sr., he's actually still weirdly in the picture. He's like the biggest pussy of a man. He doesn't do shit. He doesn't stand up for anyone. He is just like I shouldn't say pussy, but
He made your cuck.
yeah. So he says, and multiple people say this in the documentary, he is basically reported as saying, wait till I'm in jail to kill her so I have an alibi. So he had like a suspended 30-day sentence to do in jail for unrelated drug charges. And so he knew he was going to jail soon to serve those 30 days. So he's like, hey, can you guys at least wait? So like to kill her, because clearly that's what you guys are going to do. I just don't want to be connected to a murder. So he goes to jail. And then the police are called numerous times at this point. Again, no statement is taken from Vera directly without Cheri in attendance. And then around this point, Cheri really starts talking about leaving Vera's body at the train tracks to have her turned into hamburger meat like Travis.
So who's Travis?
Travis is her other nephew from somebody else, maybe that she fucked as well. I don't know. But Travis is a nephew of hers who was playing around by the train tracks and got decapitated.
So he was at a skate park.
Yeah.
And
2 trains were passing and his head got caught in between them.
yeah.
And she must have said hamburger meat like 6 times in the documentary, and she thought it was like funny.
So one train decapitates him, and then
And the
another
other
train comes
runs
and
over his body.
hits his body and turns it into hamburger meat.
Which is I mean, she's like proud of the fact that she like, that's what I said. So she starts referencing Travis to the family, being like, hey, remember what happened to Travis? Let's do that to Vera too, basically. And Multiple family members say this. Again, it's like Scotty and Shannon mostly.
So they think that this is like the best way to dispose of a body and make it unidentifiable.
Yeah, like No, it's not that it's not to not identify the body. It's to obliterate evidence.
That too.
Okay. At this point, Travis and Nicole just straight up start stabbing Vera. They take her into the bathroom and just stab her with a knife, like kitchen knives. And one stab wound is so bad that Cheri says she can stick her whole finger inside of it. And she fucking
and
thinks
she
it's
does
funny.
stick her finger
She
in.
says she stuck her finger in it. She's like, it was crazy. But she couldn't call 911 because she was in her wheelchair and no one would hand her a phone. I mean, whatever. I can't with her. So the night before her murder, Cheri gathered her kids together basically and concocted a cover story because she fucking knew shit was going to go down.
She orchestrated it.
She orchestrated it to go down.
I mean, she's orchestrating it right now.
And what sucks too is that the day before Vera Jo is killed, they weirdly take her across the street to the Salvation Army to the soup kitchen because that's where they go for lunch. And all the volunteers there are like, yeah, it looked like she went through a fucking windshield. That girl was so badly beaten. Like she looked like she was in a major car accident and nobody calls the police.
It's really weird.
It's really weird. Like this whole town does feel guilty. And like some of the people, I mean, they're Salvation Army volunteers. They're not supposed to be bad people, but you are bad if you you're bad if you're a bystander and don't do shit about it. Like, I'm sorry. Then call the police and have it be, whoops, I didn't know she was a car accident in the end.
Yeah, no, I know.
Just take the chance. So on March 26, 2011, this is the last day of Vera Jo Reigle's life, which is one of the worst fucking days that anybody could ever have. So Shannon says, and I believe this is Shannon and Cheri's story, and this is where my least two favorite women in the documentary. Shannon and Cheri say that Vera sprayed a bunch of mace upstairs.
That sounds like something she'd probably do.
And allegedly, Shannon was 3 months pregnant at this point and had to go to the hospital, and she miscarried at the hospital because of the mace. Now, she says in the documentary she wasn't pregnant and all this stuff. It gets very, very discombobulated here. Whether she was pregnant or not is really not the point. The point is they needed something to push Danny and Nicole over the edge to kill Vera. And
well,
I do believe that Shannon was in on it.
Her little Facebook post or whatever.
Yeah, it says that she was pregnant 2 days prior. But see, it doesn't matter if she's pregnant or not. It really, really does not matter.
No, it's just another reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's just we need to concoct a story to make sure that Vera is killed today. Because Danny's blood is boiling, but it's not to the point where he's ready to kill her. So if Shannon miscarries, that'll be the thing to put him over the edge, right? So that's what happens. Chucky, we haven't really talked about him too much. He's kind of a piece of shit.
Oh yeah,
he's the
he's
youngest.
A huge piece of shit.
Yeah, he's the youngest. And this is again like I say allegedly, but I believe it happened. So the youngest of the clan, he looks like he's like 13 or 14 years old.
He's a Crip.
He is a Crip. He goes and picks up some dog poop in the yard and forces Vera to eat it. And apparently this isn't the first time.
I hate this story.
And then Nicole, potentially Chucky, and Danny Bixler have her in the bathroom and they sodomize her with a plunger. And then they find out she's on her period. And so they sodomize her vaginal area with a toothbrush, get it covered in blood, and then force her to brush her teeth with it. And this is, by all accounts, like multiple people saying this. This is fucking horrendous. Everything about the final abuse on her last day sucks. Super hardcore.
Gummo 2.0.
Yes.
Well, so there's a street fight with this rival gang down the street, and I think Danny pulls a knife.
Yeah. So then again, remember, him and Nicole have a warrant for their arrest out in Tiffin. So they need to jet, and Zach's going to jet with them. So they all jet, and they lay low at an aunt's house for a little while.
So they come
back.
Right.
And Cheri is really pressuring Zach to basically get Danny and Nicole to kill Vera. because she doesn't want her immediate children to be involved. She's like, do whatever you need to do to get them to kill her. But I don't want you actually there because I need you to have like reasonable doubt. I need reasonable doubt on you.
Yeah. Deniable plausibility.
Yes.
Plausible deniability.
So at this point, Zachary is 100% in the know that Vera is going to die. And Danny and Nicole are ready to kill her.
Also, Danny and Nicole, and maybe Zachary too, they have been on like a 2-day drug binge.
Oh,
too.
yeah, with lots of ecstasy, alcohol, weed, and cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure that they didn't have clear minds going into it, but they definitely this was very much premeditated murder. They go into the house and they're like, Vera, get your shoes on. So at this point, remember, she's covered in stab wounds that are multiple days old that day, whatever. She's eaten dog poop. She's been sodomized by them. She's fucking terrified of them. They're like, go get your shoes on. And she says to Scotty, remember, like the one decent guy in the whole story, and he's still not even the greatest. She says to Scotty, will you come with me? Because he's like the one guy who's not freakishly scary in the family. And he says,
the only guy not beating her.
Yeah. And so he says, sure, let me go upstairs and get my shoes on. So Zachary is up there and because like Cheri's like, Zachary, you're not leaving this fucking house because you're not going to get implicated in this murder. And so when Scotty's getting his shoes, Zach stops him and says, you're not going because they're going to kill her. And then Cheri tells both of them, tell them that Danny stopped you from going. And so in the documentary, Scotty is like, my mom made me lie. So I'm just like letting, the truth out now that Zach is the one that told me not to go, which implicates Zach in the murder. He doesn't come back down and they're like, come on, let's go. And so she leaves for the last time, the House of Horrors. She leaves for the last time to go on a walk with Danny Bixler Jr. and Nicole Peters. And basically, from what it sounds like, Nicole just started stabbing her because they said the first cuts were really shallow and weak, most likely by a woman. Then he takes the knife away from her and like jumps on the back of Vera.
Well, I think before that happens.
What?
So Nicole is stabbing Vera, and it's not very effective because they have a dull knife, and she's got
wearing
a bunch of
clothes.
clothes on. So they make her strip.
No. This is before that. He tries to slice her neck, and that's why there's all the blood on the sweatshirt.
Yeah, you're right.
So he grabs the knife from Nicole, and then he jumps on her back, basically Vera's back, and tries to saw her head off. Okay, I told you guys this is a fucking rough one. He tries to saw her head off, basically, but the knife is so dull and he can't break the bone. So he gives up, and this is when they strip her. And we have evidence of the neck being done prior to her stripping because of all, you can see, they show it in the documentary.
Yeah,
there's just a ton of blood right where the neckline is. So at this point, I hate to say it, she's still alive. They make her strip all of her clothes off, and they don't even try to hide it. Like, this just like bloody pink sweatpants, like in the bushes. And then basically, I believe Danny Bixler takes over at this point, and he stabs her a bunch. And they basically carry her over to the train tracks, and they try to set her head like on the tracks so that when the train comes, it'll decapitate her. What I don't understand either is that if they want it to look like an accident or something, I mean, she's naked.
Yeah.
Like, this is a terrible.
And they don't recover the clothes or anything. They just leave everything.
And he throws a knife in the river, and he ends up telling them that later. It's crazy. So they leave her, and I would trigger warning about the documentary big time. It's probably the most out of all the things we've talked about, it's probably the worst thing in the documentary. Visceral. They no less than 4 to 5 times show her naked body, her actual body covered in blood on the train tracks. So if you can't handle that stuff, you can't watch the documentary. It's really harsh. And they show it within the first few minutes too. They show like part of her body on the tracks.
Yeah, it's just, this documentary is.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit talking about the documentary in a sense because it's very vivid, And it does really give you a sense of what happened, like none other. But at the same time, it does feel exploitative at certain points for sure. And it's definitely towards Vera. So they leave her body on the tracks so that they're hoping that the train decapitates her, and they leave.
To go party.
Yeah. But with her last ounce of survival instinct, she actually crawls onto the track. And so she is
between
laying
the rails.
Yeah. No, not between the between the rails so that the train would pass over her. So she lays in a fetal position, a 12-inch high fetal position, and the train's clearance is 13 inches. So when the train goes over her, it completely misses her, which preserves her body perfectly. She must have died sometime between pulling herself in between the tracks and then the train conductor calling 911. He actually thought that it was a baby deer on the road. When he realized, he was like, oh my gosh, there's a naked woman covered in blood on the tracks. Like, you need to come now.
Yeah.
So this party, there's a lot of attendees at the party, and there's pictures of them high-fiving and giving a thumbs up and flipping them off, and everyone's drinking vodka and doing drugs and stuff. And Danny and Nicole are openly talking about killing Vera.
And Nicole is just jubilant.
Oh, jubilant. Jubilant. Yeah, she is. She's like, I got my teardrop tonight. So she can match her fucking boyfriend.
These people are so fucked.
I know. So, and there's a lot of people saying the same thing, and they're even unrelated to the family. So there's no doubt in my mind that Nicole and Danny are the major killers. But the thing is, what sucks, and there's an organization called Voices for Vera who agree with how much this sucks, is that yes, you put, the two people charged with murder were Danny Bixler Jr. and Nicole Peters, but there were other people responsible for Vera's death. Cheri almost more so than any. She was the person who contracted the killing, essentially.
Yeah.
We also know of Cheri's guilt as well, because the next day, I don't even know, her body was found at 3 a.m. But by 8 a.m., Cheri, and I don't even think it was announced or anything, Cheri was already calling the Department of Human Services to make sure that Zachary got full custody of the daughter.
Yeah. The
She
body's
was
not even cold yet.
Yeah, and she was on the bullhorn being like, I need my baby girl, because she was trying to get Zachary to get full custody of her so he would just hand him the baby over to her. Yeah, no questions asked. And then months later, fighting for quote unquote custody of his daughter, he misses a court date, or he misses a supervised visit.
So he shows up late, I think, to the first one, right?
Yeah, and she doesn't want to be near him.
And
she's
baby
freaking out.
Does not totally freaks out anytime she's around him.
Yeah, and so he then the second visit
doesn't show up. He's not late. She's freaking out so bad that he leaves early.
Yeah, and then the second visit he misses entirely.
Right.
And so she's put up for adoption. Fucking luckily, could you imagine? And she's adopted out. I hear probably 9-10 years old now. I hear just from diving into Facebook groups and stuff, and people who say that they know the family, I hear she's doing very well now, and she's a beautiful little girl, and she was adopted from a family that lives far enough away that she never has to run into, family at all. And so I'm really, really happy to hear that.
That's
and
good.
The best news of all, well, I guess, okay, there's a couple updates. Just kind of, Zach gets 4 years for a prior theft and obstruction. I think that the obstruction charges had something to do with Vera's death, basically lying to police.
Right.
And that happens in August of 2011, so just 5 months after her death. And then in October of 2011, Cheri gets sentenced to 5 years probation for obstruction of justice, I believe directly related to Vera. 30 of those days need to be spent in jail, but she gets that suspended because her feet are disgusting and they can't take care of her. That's how bad her feet are. The jail doesn't even want her.
Yeah. What did Danny Jr. get? And
Danny Jr. Thank you. Danny Jr. and Nicole Peters, they were both found guilty of murder. She got she took a plea deal, and basically that's one of the reasons we know so much, because part of the plea deal was giving all the details. She got 23 years. I believe Danny Bixler got life. because
Gotcha.
he was the major perpetrator. But the best news of all we wanted to save for last.
Breaking news.
Literally just a couple of hours ago, Cheri Brooks, aka Sugar Babe, is dead. She just died today.
Yeah. How Satan's cock taste, baby.
So, I mean, that couldn't have been like a better end to this podcast. So I'm glad I was, trolling around on my Facebook groups and message boards and stuff. But it has been corroborated by multiple groups and people who allegedly live in Ohio, in Findlay, and know the family. Everyone says she's dead. So ding dong, the witch is dead.
Well, there's a fucking little sliver of silver lining there.
This tiniest sliver. But yeah, so that is the story of... it's not Vera... I don't want to say that's Vera Jo's story. I'm just saying that that's the story of her murder.
That's what happened to her.
Yeah. So, again, if you've got the stomach, we half-heartedly recommend the documentary. And if you want to feel better about your teeth, we heavily,
I'm never brushing my teeth again. Because I don't think even if I fucking took a hammer to my face, I could look that bad.
Yeah.
There's one guy that has a gray rainbow for his fucking grill.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never want to see a gray rainbow again.
Honestly, the worst teeth award other than that. And I hate to say this because she's fairly innocent in all of this, but
Jaws?
I want to GoFundMe for her mouth. It's Punky's baby's mama. Like, she's fine. Like, she does unfortunately see Vera the day that she dies, and like she sees her getting beaten by Chucky with like a fishing pole and stuff and doesn't do anything about it. So she's not great.
All these people are complicit.
But she has got the scariest teeth I've ever seen before in my life.
I think she could take down a shark.
I think she is a shark.
She could be. There is some definite like hybrid like sea life mixed with humans here. It's like some weird
it's the
Dagon.
H.P. Lovecraft land.
Yeah, it's fucking strange. I don't know what's up with Ohio, but I don't think we need it anymore.
Wait, Allison lives there and listens to this podcast. We're sorry. We'll leave Cleveland there.
Yeah.
So that's the story for today. We hope we didn't offend you too badly. And if we did, then you might be on the wrong side of the law or humanity, because most of the people we made fun of deserved it. They're all pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, that is the undeniable truth. You can join our True Crime Dumpster Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter at TC Dumpster and on Instagram at True Crime Dumpster. You can email us at truecrimedumpster@gmail.com. Listen to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, and many other platforms.
Oh, YouTube now. Although we kind of need to update that. Yeah.
Just audio, though. Maybe someday we'll do video and you can see us fucking up in
real time.
Yeah. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about our podcast. Every review, rating, and referral helps us to get a larger audience. Tune in next time as we continue talking out the trash.
Human garbage. All right, bye.
Bye now.